It was a sweltering, windless spring evening in Oklahoma. Iris Green walked tiredly up the stairs to her third-floor apartment in an old brick building. She had just finished a 10-hour shift at the Oklahoma Mall, where she worked as a sales clerk in a clothing store. Her feet were buzzing and the scraps of conversations with customers were ringing in her head. Iris stopped in front of the door when she heard an unfamiliar male voice from the apartment. Her mother hadn't warned her about visitors. After a moment's hesitation, she slid the key into the lock. "Oh, Iris." Dorothy Green peered out of the kitchen, her face glowing with an unusual cheerfulness. "How good of you to come back! Come here quickly. I want you to meet someone." In the small kitchen with its shabby yellow walls, a large dark-skinned man in his 50s sat at the table. He stood up leisurely, and Iris noted his impressive height, at least 185 centimeters. His massive shoulders and calloused hands made him look like a man of physical labor. "Melvin Browning," he introduced himself, extending his hand. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you. Dorothy has told me so much about you." "Finally?" Iris shook his hand, feeling the unpleasant pressure of his fingers. "Honey, I wanted to surprise you." Dorothy fidgeted with the stove. "Melvin and I have been dating for 3 months. We met at the supermarket where I work. His truck often makes deliveries to our place." Iris glanced around the kitchen. There was open wine on the table, plates of leftover baked chicken, her mother's favorite dish that she made only on special occasions. 3 months? Iris repeated slowly. "And you never mentioned it once?" "I wanted to be sure," Dorothy smiled embarrassedly. "You know I haven't been in a relationship for a long time after your father." "It's all right, Mom," Iris interrupted, not wanting to stir up painful memories of her father leaving them 15 years ago in front of a stranger. "I'm just surprised." "Have a seat, dear." Dorothy put an extra plate on the table. "We have leftover chicken, and Melvin brought some excellent wine." "I think I'll take a shower first," Iris said, feeling the need to collect her thoughts. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Browning." "Just Melvin." He smiled, revealing a row of white teeth with a noticeable gap between the front ones. "I hope we'll be friends." In his voice, low and velvety, Iris caught something fake, like a used car salesman on a cheap soap opera. Under the jets of warm water, Iris tried to understand the cause of her anxiety. Her mother deserved to be happy after all the hardships she'd endured. She'd raised her daughter alone, scraping by on odd jobs until she'd gotten a job as a supermarket cashier. For a 48-year-old woman, meeting a man who showed interest in her seemed almost miraculous. But something about Melvin made Iris wary at first sight. Perhaps it was the overly appraising way he looked around the apartment, or the overconfidence with which he held himself, as if he were already the master of their home. When Iris returned to the kitchen, Melvin was talking about his job as a truck driver, his long hauls across several states, and his plans to start his own business someday. "You know, your mom's a special woman," he said, looking at Dorothy with a tenderness that seemed fake to Iris. "They don't make women like that anymore." "Melvin is so thoughtful," Dorothy bloomed at the compliment. "My refrigerator broke last week and he brought a new one the very next day." "Impressive." Iris took a sip of wine. "How often do you come to Oklahoma?" "About once every 2 weeks," Melvin answered. "But now I'm going to ask the dispatcher to put me on local routes, to be closer to your mom." Dorothy blushed like a girl. Iris couldn't remember the last time she'd seen her mother so happy. The evening dragged on for an agonizingly long time. Melvin enthusiastically told tales of the trucker's life, occasionally touching Dorothy's arm as she looked at him with adoration. Iris felt unwanted in her own home. "Honey, Melvin offered to take us to Thunderbird Lake this weekend," Dorothy said as they washed the dishes after dinner. "The views there are amazing." "I'm working this weekend," Iris lied. "But you should go and get away." "I'm sorry." Her mother sounded genuinely disappointed. "I wish you could get to know each other better." For the next 2 weeks, Melvin was a frequent visitor to their home. He brought groceries, helped with minor repairs, and one day brought a new television set to replace their old one with a malfunctioning screen. Dorothy glowed with happiness, and Iris tried to stay away, finding reasons to stay late at work or meet with friends. One evening, Melvin came into the kitchen where Iris was making tea. "We didn't get along very well, did we?" he asked bluntly. Why would you say that? Iris tried to speak neutrally. You've been avoiding me. Melvin leaned against the door jamb, blocking the exit. I understand your feelings. You're worried about your mother, it's natural. I just want her to be happy. We're on the same page on that. He stepped forward. I take your mother seriously, Iris. She's a wonderful woman, and I'm going to do everything I can to make her happy. Despite the right words, Iris caught something threatening in his tone. Look, Mr. Browning. Melvin, I'm not trying to come between you two. Just give me time to get used to it, okay? He nodded, looking at her appraisingly. Sure, time. Just don't take too long, okay? He smiled, but his eyes remained cold. Your mom deserves some happiness, and I don't want anything, or anyone, get in the way. The Bluebird Cafe wasn't crowded. James Watkins, who everyone just called Jay, sat in the far corner sipping coffee. He and Iris had been friends since high school, and he was always the person she turned to in times of need. So your mom has a boyfriend? Jay leaned back in his chair. What's wrong with that? I don't know, Iris sighed. There's something wrong with him. He's too perfect. He shows up with gifts, says all the right things, but he looks at us like he's judging how much we're worth. Maybe you're just jealous. You're used to it being just you and Mom. It's not that, Iris lowered her voice. I saw him talking on the phone on the porch yesterday. He was different, stiff, cold. And then he came back into the house and turned back into a sweetheart. Jay frowned. You said he was a trucker? You know, some of them moonlight in ways that aren't quite legal. Smuggling contraband, for instance. You think? I don't know, Jay shrugged. But if you want, we can check it out. How? I work for a delivery service, remember? My route is near the terminal where the trucks unload. I could hang out there, ask around about him. You find out when his next flight is. Iris hesitated. Spying on her mother's boyfriend didn't seem right. But what if her intuition wasn't wrong? What if Melvin isn't who he says he is? All right. Cell phone rings. I'll find out his schedule. The opportunity presented itself 3 days later. Dorothy mentioned that Melvin was leaving on a flight to Dallas and wouldn't be back for 2 days. Jay met Iris in his beat-up pickup truck near the trucking terminal. Are you sure you want to do this? He asked as they parked in the visitors' parking lot. No, but I need to know who my mother is in contact with. Surveillance turned out to be a boring endeavor. They sat in the car for almost 3 hours, watching the loading and unloading, but they didn't see Melvin or his truck. Jay was about to start the engine when Iris grabbed his arm. Look, it's his truck! The dark blue pickup truck that Melvin had driven to their house several times had pulled up to the terminal. Melvin got out of it and headed not toward the main building, but toward a side warehouse. Odd, shouldn't he be on his way to Dallas by now? They decided to wait. 20 minutes later, Melvin came out with a tall, gray-haired man. The two of them opened the trunk of the pickup, and the gray-haired man handed Melvin something, a small package that he tucked into the inside pocket of his jacket. It's Ray Thompson, Jay whispered. He did time for drug trafficking 5 or 6 years ago. Seems to be clean now, but there's a rumor going around the neighborhood that's not quite true. You think Melvin's in on it too? I don't know, but it looks suspicious. Melvin and Ray shook hands and parted ways. Melvin got in his truck and drove out of the parking lot. Let's follow him, Iris said firmly. For the next 2 hours, they watched Melvin visit 3 addresses across town. In the first 2, he stayed inside for 10 to 15 minutes each, but the third place turned out to be an abandoned auto repair shop on the outskirts. I don't like this, Jay grumbled when they had parked a safe distance away. Maybe we should call it a night. Wait, Iris pulled a compact camera out of her bag. If he's up to something, we need proof. Through the murky glass of the dusty auto shop window, they could see Melvin handing several men small packages, very similar to the one he'd received from Ray. Iris snapped a few pictures. Jesus, he's a drug dealer, she whispered. I need to show these pictures to my mom. They were about to leave when the workshop door opened and Melvin stepped outside. He looked around, and for a moment his gaze lingered on their car. Shit, did he see us? Jay ducked down. I don't know. Iris felt a chill run down her spine. Let's get out of here. On the way home, Iris couldn't stop thinking about what they'd seen. The man her mother had trusted with her heart had turned out to be a criminal. How to tell her that? Would Dorothy believe it? But one thing Iris knew for sure was that she would not let Melvin Browning ruin her mother's life, even if she had to risk it. The photos taken outside the abandoned machine shop were grainy and dark, but they showed Melvin's silhouette and the packages he was handing to strangers. Iris spread the pictures out on the kitchen table of her small apartment, scrutinizing each one. Jay sat across the table, sipping his coffee thoughtfully from a cracked mug. "What exactly do you think he's giving them?" Iris asked, moving one of the pictures closer. "Judging by the size of the packages, it could be anything." Jay shrugged. "But given Ray Thompson's involvement, it's probably drugs. He was arrested for dealing meth 5 years ago." Iris ran a hand through her hair, feeling the anxiety building inside. They'd been following Melvin for 4 days now, and what they'd discovered confirmed her worst fears. Melvin had been meeting Ray and other suspicious individuals on a regular basis, always in different places, always briefly. Classic drug dealer pattern. "We need clearer evidence," Iris said, gathering the photos. "These pictures aren't convincing enough. Mom might think we're just stalking her boyfriend and making up stories." "I know a guy who works at the police department," Jay suggested. "He can see if they have anything on Melvin Browning." "You do that, and I'll try to find out more about his background." The next morning, Iris called the transportation company where Melvin worked, identifying herself as an insurance company employee. To her surprise, the Human Resources Department had no information on a driver named Melvin Browning. "Are you sure?" Iris asked. "Tall, dark-skinned man, early 50s, drives international class trucks?" "Ma'am, we have 24 drivers and none named Melvin Browning," the employee repeated patiently. "Maybe you have the wrong company." Iris hung up the phone, feeling a chill run down her spine. Melvin had lied about his job. What else in his story wasn't true? By late afternoon, Jay brought disappointing news. "A friend of mine checked the database," he said, sinking tiredly onto the couch in Iris's apartment. Melvin Browning had served 3 years in a Texas state prison. He was arrested for drug possession and distribution, but his sentence was reduced for cooperating with the investigation. When was this? 8 years ago. After he was released, he moved to Oklahoma. Police suspected him of being involved in several other cases, but there wasn't enough evidence. "What about Ray Thompson?" "It's more interesting." Jay leaned closer. "They were in the same prison together. Ray had gotten out 2 years earlier, but obviously they kept in touch." Iris felt anger boiling up inside. This man, an ex-con, a drug dealer, was now near her mother, gaining her trust, possibly planning something sinister. "I need to tell my mom," she said firmly. "Tonight." "I'm not sure that's a good idea," Jay objected cautiously. "We still don't have much concrete evidence. Maybe we should talk to Melvin first." "And say what?" "Excuse me, we know you're an ex-con and a drug dealer. Could you please stay away from my mother?" Iris shook her head. "No, she must know the truth, no matter how bitter it was." Dorothy got home from work late. Her shift at the supermarket ended at 22, but she often stayed late to help close the cash register. When she entered the apartment, Iris was already waiting for her in the kitchen, spreading out the photos and printouts she'd received from Jay on the table. "Mom, we need to talk," Iris said seriously, looking at her tired mother. "Is something wrong, dear?" Dorothy looked worriedly at the desk, littered with papers. "Are you in trouble?" "Not me." "You." Iris pointed to a chair. "Please sit down. It's about Melvin." Dorothy reluctantly lowered herself into the chair, her face tense. "Melvin? What's wrong with him?" "He's not who he says he is." Iris slid the printouts toward her mother. "He did time in prison for drug trafficking, and now he's doing the same thing again." Dorothy stared at the sheets as if she didn't understand what they said. "What is this nonsense? Who told you that?" "I did my own investigation, and here's the proof." Iris spread out the photographs. "Jay and I have been following him. He's meeting with an ex-cellmate, Ray Thompson, and other suspicious individuals. He's passing them bags of drugs." "You've been following him?" Dorothy's voice turned from shock to anger. "How could you? It's an invasion of privacy. I was worried about you. Mom, look at these pictures. Look at the documents. He lied to you about his job. He's not a truck driver." I called the transportation company. They'd never heard of Melvin Browning. Dorothy shook her head, her eyes filling with tears. Iris, I don't believe a word you say. These pictures don't prove anything. All I see are blurry figures. And as for his work, maybe you just called the wrong company. Mom, please. Iris took her mother's hands in her own. Think straight. Where does he get the money for expensive gifts? Why doesn't he ever invite you to his house? Why are all his stories so vague without specific details? Dorothy released her hands and stood up. That's enough. I won't let you denigrate Melvin. He's the kindest, most caring man I've met in years. He makes me feel alive again. And you... She shook her head. You're just jealous. Can't bear to have someone other than you in my life. That's not true, Iris exclaimed. I only want to protect you. From what? From happiness? Iris, you're 29 years old and you're still clinging to my skirt. Maybe it's time for you to live your life and let me live mine. Her mother's words hurt Iris to the core. Never before had Dorothy spoken so cruelly to her. Had Melvin so clouded her judgment? All right, Iris said quietly. You're a grown woman, and you have the right to make your own decisions. But when you realize I'm right, I'll be there for you. There won't be any when, Dorothy cut her off, gathering up the photos and papers. I'm throwing this away, and we'll never revisit this conversation again. And stay away from Melvin, Iris, I mean it. When the bedroom door closed behind her mother, Iris sank into a chair, feeling devastated. She had expected the conversation to be difficult, but she hadn't anticipated such a harsh reaction. For the first time in their lives, a real wall of misunderstanding stood between them. The next day, Iris discovered that the lock to her apartment had been picked. Everything inside looked untouched, but she noticed at once that the memory card from her camera and all the printouts with information about Melvin and Ray were gone. The room smelled faintly of cologne, the same cologne Melvin used. Concerned, she called Jay, who arrived 20 minutes later. We need to call the police, he said, examining the broken lock. What am I going to tell them? That my mother's boyfriend may have broken into my apartment and stolen pictures of him dealing drugs? I have no proof it was him. But it's dangerous, Iris. If he found out about our investigation, then he knows we're not a threat, Iris grinned bitterly. Mom didn't believe a word I said, and now we don't even have the scant evidence we had. The next morning, when Iris returned from her night shift at the store, she often filled in for her co-workers. A black SUV with tinted windows was parked outside her house. As she walked by, the window rolled down, and she saw Melvin behind the wheel. Good morning, Iris, he said with a smile, but his eyes remained cold. Would you like a ride? We need to talk. Thank you, but I'm tired. Some other time, Iris tried to pass, but Melvin got out of the car, blocking her way. I insist. There wasn't even a hint of friendliness in his voice now. This won't take long. Iris looked around, realizing the street was empty, too early for most of the neighborhood. She could shout, but who would hear? Besides, so far Melvin hadn't done anything illegal. 5 minutes, she agreed, climbing into the passenger seat of the SUV. Melvin started the engine and slowly pulled away. Your mother is very upset, he began without looking at Iris. She thinks you're trying to ruin our relationship. I'm trying to protect her from a man who lied to her from the beginning, Iris countered. You're not who you say you are, Melvin. Who do you think I am? He was smiling now, but it was a smile that made him look cold. An ex-con? A drug dealer? He stopped the car in a deserted alley. So what? So you admit it? I admit I've had a troubled past, but now I'm trying to start a new life. With your mother. Melvin turned to her, his gaze hard. And I'm not going to let you ruin it. If you really want to start a new life, why do you keep seeing Ray Thompson? Why are you handing packages to suspicious individuals in abandoned auto repair shops? Melvin laughed, but the laugh was devoid of mirth. You've seen too much, girl, and you understand too little. But it doesn't matter. He leaned closer, his voice almost a whisper. Remember one thing. If you keep digging at me, if you say a word to your mother or anyone else, I'll make you regret it for the rest of your life. And it's not just about you. How's your buddy Jay doing? I hear he's got a little sister in high school. It'd be a shame if something happened to her. Iris felt a shiver run through her body. It wasn't an empty threat. In Melvin's eyes, she saw the cold determination of a man capable of anything. "You wouldn't dare," she whispered. "Test me." Melvin leaned back in his seat. "Now listen carefully. I'm going to marry your mother. We're going to be a happy family. And you're going to smile and support us. No investigations, no talking behind our backs. Do you understand?" Iris nodded silently, feeling the despair building inside. "Good girl." Melvin started the engine. "Now I'm going to take you home. And remember, I'll always be watching you." When Iris was finally in her apartment, her hands were still shaking. She sank down on the bed, trying to gather her thoughts. Melvin had just openly threatened her and the people close to her. He hadn't hidden his criminal activities, and he was going to marry her mother. A phone call interrupted her musings. It was Dorothy, her voice sounding excited. "Iris, I have terrific news. Melvin has proposed to me. We're going to get married." Iris closed her eyes, feeling a tear roll down her cheek. That's wonderful, Mom. When's the wedding?" "In 2 weeks. I know it's very soon, but Melvin has been so insistent. He says why wait if we're sure of our feelings?" Of course he insisted, Iris thought. He needs to consolidate his position as soon as possible. What about the preparations? It's so much work, isn't it? "Oh, Melvin's taking care of everything. Already booked the little church and the restaurant for the reception. We just need to choose a dress and invite the guests," Dorothy said quietly. "Iris, I know you don't approve, but I hope you'll be there for me on this day. It would mean so much to me." "Of course, Mother." Iris swallowed the lump in her throat. "I'll always be there for you." As soon as the conversation ended, Iris dialed Jay's number. Melvin proposed to his mom. "The wedding's in 2 weeks, she said as soon as he answered. "So soon?" There was surprise in his voice. "Iris, that's suspicious. Normal people don't get married after a few months of dating. Melvin's not normal. He threatened me today, and he threatened you too, or rather, your sister." "Shit, what are you gonna do?" Iris went to the window and looked outside. The black SUV was still parked outside her house. Melvin was watching her as promised. "I don't know, but I can't let this man become part of our family. I have to figure something out, Jay. I only have 2 weeks to stop this wedding." Iris spent the next few days in a fog. She went to work, helped her mother with wedding preparations, smiled, and pretended everything was fine. But inside her, despair was building. Melvin kept his eyes on her. He either followed her personally or had Ray do it, who picked Dorothy up several times in his beat-up car to take her to dress fittings or to the flower store. The wedding was set for Saturday, in a small church on the outskirts of town. Iris had never been religious, but now she prayed that a miracle would happen, and this nightmare would end. Thursday night, Jay came to her house. "We have to go to the police," he said, pacing the small living room. "Tell them about Melvin, about his threats, about what we saw." "Without proof?" Iris shook her head. "They won't believe us. Besides, Melvin will probably notice if we start acting up, and then—" "I know he threatened my sister." Jay clenched his fists. "But we can't just sit back." "I'm not sitting around," Iris said quietly. "I have a plan, but you won't be involved in it, Jay. It's too dangerous." "What kind of plan?" "It's better you don't know. If something goes wrong, you can honestly say you had no idea." "Iris, you're scaring me. What are you up to?" She looked at her friend with determination in her eyes. "I'm going to stop the wedding and make Melvin Browning disappear from my mother's life once and for all." When Jay left, concerned and not fully convinced by her words, Iris pulled a small box from under the bed. Inside was an old revolver, an inheritance from her grandfather, kept with her for years as a memory rather than a weapon. She had never thought she would have to use it. But times had changed, and now Iris was willing to do anything to protect her family from a man whose dark side threatened to destroy them. The wedding was only 2 days away, and she knew exactly what she had to do. The small St. Joseph's Church in suburban Oklahoma was decorated with white ribbons and flowers. Despite the modest budget, Melvin had made sure everything looked dignified. The guests, mostly Dorothy's co-workers from the supermarket and a few old family friends, were already gathering, talking softly in anticipation of the ceremony. Iris arrived half an hour before it began, clutching a small purse containing a printout with evidence of Melvin's criminal activities. She'd stayed up all night, pondering every move. Tonight she would stop this wedding at any cost. At the entrance, she ran into Jay, who was shuffling nervously from foot to foot. "You came after all," he breathed out in relief. "I was beginning to worry." "I have to finish this," Iris said firmly. "Today, Melvin will be out of my mother's life forever." "And how are you going to do that?" "I'm going to talk to him. Right now, before the ceremony." She looked around. "He has to be around here somewhere." Jay put his hand on her shoulder. "Be careful. This man is dangerous." "I know what I'm doing." Iris spotted Melvin coming out of a side room. "There he is. I'll go to him." "Do you want me to come with you?" "No," she said firmly. "You wait here. If I'm not back in 15 minutes, find my mother." Without waiting for an answer, Iris walked toward Melvin, who was standing in the hallway talking to Ray. When Melvin saw her, he stopped talking and smiled his fake smile. "Iris, darling," he stepped toward her. "How nice of you to share this special day with us." "We need to talk," Iris said coldly. "Alone, now." Melvin cast a quick glance at Ray, then shrugged. "Sure, we can talk in the room." He pointed to a door at the end of the hallway. When they entered the small room filled with church utensils, Melvin closed the door and turned to Iris, dropping his mask of friendliness. "What do you want?" he asked sharply. "I don't have much time." "I want you to call off the wedding and disappear from my mother's life," Iris said bluntly. Melvin laughed. "And why would I do that?" "Because otherwise I'll tell all the guests tonight who you really are." Iris stepped forward. "I know about your business with Ray, about the drugs, your past. And you think anyone's going to take the word of an abused daughter over the word of her fiancé?" Melvin asked with a sneer. "They'll believe the evidence." Iris pulled out folded sheets of paper from her purse. "There are pictures of your meetings with Ray, information about your incarceration, testimonies from people who confirm that you're still selling drugs." Melvin squinted at the papers in her hands. For a moment there was a flicker of alarm in his eyes, but he quickly pulled himself together. "Let's not make any hasty decisions, Iris." His voice became ingratiating. "I understand you're worried about your mother. It's only natural. But I really love Dorothy, and I want to make her happy." "You want to use her," Iris parried. "And I'm not going to let that happen. You have 5 minutes to get out of here, or I'm going to the guests. Are you really ready to make a scene? Break your mother's heart on what should have been the happiest day of her life? Better a broken heart today than a ruined life tomorrow." Melvin nodded slowly, as if pondering her words. Then, without warning, he lunged forward, snatching the papers from her hands and pushing Iris hard against the wall. The back of her head hit the wood paneling with a thud. "Stupid girl," Melvin hissed, holding her by the throat with one hand and tearing up the papers with the other. "You think I'm going to let you ruin everything? Let go." "Me," Iris squirmed, trying to free herself from his grip. "No, baby." Melvin leaned closer, his eyes as cold as ice. "I'm sorry, but you're out of line." The vestry door opened, and Ray walked in. "What's going on here?" he asked, quickly assessing the situation. "Melvin, we don't have much time before the ceremony." "We have a problem." Melvin let go of Iris, and she slid down the wall, gasping for air. "Our dear stepdaughter has decided to make a scene." Ray frowned. "What are we going to do?" "She has proof." Melvin picked up the torn papers. "Or she did. But I can't risk her having copies. So call the whole thing off," Ray suggested. "Let's find another woman in another city." "No," Melvin cut him off. "I've been preparing for too long. Dorothy is perfect for my plans." Ray nodded as if he knew what he was talking about. He walked over to Iris and roughly lifted her to her feet. "What are you going to do?" she asked, feeling fear stiffen her body. "Looks like you need some air, dear," Melvin smiled. "I'm afraid you're going to miss the ceremony." "Mom will be looking for me." Iris tried to free herself from Ray's grip. "Oh, don't worry about that," Melvin said. "I'll tell her you didn't feel well and go home. By the time she gets worried, we'll be on our wedding trip." "Melvin, we have to hurry," Ray reminded him. "People are already getting ready." "I know." Melvin adjusted his bow tie and pulled on his jacket. "Take her out the back door. Take her somewhere away from the city. I'll join you after the reception." "Understood." Ray nodded, squeezing Iris's hand tighter. "What if she resists?" Melvin looked at Iris with a cold smile. Then silence her, forever. I can't let her ruin my plans. No! Iris exclaimed, trying to break free. You can't! Her words were cut short by Ray's sharp blow to her face. Her eyes went black, and she felt the metallic taste of blood in her mouth. Hush, darling, Melvin said softly. Don't make it any worse than it already is, and don't worry about your mother. I'll take care of her, properly. He looked at his watch. I gotta go. The bride is waiting, he turned to Ray. Make it clean. Dispose of the body where it won't be found for a long time. The usual, Ray nodded. Melvin took one last look at Iris. Goodbye, stepdaughter. I'm sorry we couldn't get along. He left the room, and Ray dragged a half-stunned Iris to the back door of the church. None of the guests, preoccupied with the upcoming ceremony, noticed as they crossed the small churchyard and approached a black SUV parked in the alley. Get in! Ray opened the trunk and pushed Iris roughly inside. And don't even think about screaming. The trunk lid slammed shut, plunging Iris into darkness. She heard the driver's door slam, the engine roar, and the car started up. In the cramped, stuffy space, Iris felt every turn, every pothole in the road make her body ache. How long they drove, she couldn't say. Maybe half an hour, maybe an hour. Finally, the car stopped. The trunk opened and Iris squinted into the bright sunlight. Ray grabbed her arm and pulled her outside. They were in the forest, in a small clearing surrounded by tall trees. A dirt road could be seen in the distance. Where are we? Iris asked, trying to collect her thoughts. Far enough away from civilization, Ray answered, pulling a gun from his pocket. No one will hear us here. Please don't do this, Iris pleaded. I'll leave town, I swear. You'll never see me again. It's too late to negotiate. Ray shook his head. Melvin's made his decision, and I always follow his instructions. My friend Jay, Iris continued desperately. He knows I went to talk to Melvin. If I disappear, he'll go to the police. Your friend is too afraid for his sister to do anything about it, Ray grinned. Melvin has a way of convincing people. The sound of a car approaching in the distance. Ray tensed, looking toward the road. It's back, he muttered, faster than I expected. A silver sedan, the rental car Melvin had driven to the church, pulled into the clearing. He got out of the car, no longer wearing a bow tie, and walked toward them, whistling a tune. Did everything go smoothly? Ray asked. Perfectly, Melvin smiled. Dorothy was now officially Mrs. Browning, and she didn't even notice her daughter's absence. She was too excited. He turned to Iris, his eyes cold. Your mother looked beautiful, dear. I wish you had been there on her special day. You're a monster, Iris whispered. Maybe, Melvin shrugged. But now I'm a monster with a legal wife and access to everything she has, including the house, insurance, and bank accounts. He held out his hand to Ray. Give me the gun. Ray handed him the gun, and Melvin weighed it in his hand. You know, Iris, I was really hoping we could get along. You could have been part of my new family, but you were too stubborn. You never wanted a family, Iris said. You just wanted to use my mother. Not only that, Melvin shook his head, I do have feelings for her. She's a sweet woman, obedient, doesn't ask too many questions, the perfect wife for a man like me. He raised his gun, pointing it at Iris. But unfortunately, her daughter proved to be too nosy. And that always ends badly, Iris. It always does. The first shot sounded deafeningly loud in the silence of the forest. The bullet hit Iris in the chest, and she fell to her knees, feeling the heat spreading through her body. A second shot, a third. Melvin kept firing, methodically emptying the pistol's magazine. 13 shots rang out in the silence of the forest before Melvin lowered his weapon. Iris's body, riddled with bullets, lay motionless on the ground. Why so many? Ray asked, looking around nervously. The first one was enough. I wanted to be sure. Melvin tossed the gun next to the body. Besides, I always take 13 shots, my lucky number. He looked at his watch. We should get going. Dorothy's waiting at the restaurant. The wedding reception, you know. What about this one? Ray nodded at Iris's body. Leave it, Melvin shrugged. The wild animals will take care of it. By the time they find her, if they find her at all, we'll be long gone. They got into their cars and drove away, leaving Iris's body lying in the woods. In a small restaurant on the outskirts of Oklahoma City, Dorothy Green, now Browning, smiled happily as she accepted congratulations from her guests. Her new husband stood beside her with his arm around her shoulders, looking like the happiest man in the world. "Where is Iris?" one of Dorothy's friends asked. "I haven't seen her since the ceremony. She wasn't feeling well," Melvin answered with a concerned expression. "She must have been nervous. She went home to rest. I should call her, see how she's doing." Dorothy reached for her purse. "Honey," Melvin stopped her gently. "Give her time to recover. You know it's not easy for her to accept our marriage. Call tomorrow before we leave on our honeymoon." Dorothy hesitated for a second, then nodded. "You're right. I won't bother her today." Melvin smiled and kissed his wife on the cheek. "That's good. Now let's enjoy our special day, Mrs. Browning." Dorothy smiled happily back, unaware of her daughter's fate and the man she had just let into her life. The evening after the wedding was quiet. Dorothy sat on the edge of the bed in the hotel room where she and Melvin had checked in for the night before leaving on their wedding trip. Her new husband was taking a shower, and the sound of the water coming from the bathroom provided a cozy backdrop. Dorothy dialed her daughter's number for the third time and heard the long beeps again. No one was answering. The anxiety she had been suppressing all day was now growing by the second. "Iris is still not answering?" Melvin asked, coming out of the bathroom with a towel around his shoulders. His hair was damp, and a soft smile played on his face. "No," Dorothy put the phone away. "It's not like her. Even if she's upset about our wedding, she'd answer it. Something's wrong, Melvin. I can feel it." Melvin sat down next to her and put his arm around her shoulders. "Don't worry so much, dear. Iris is a grown woman. Maybe she just decided to take a break, to think about what happened. Or maybe she met up with some friends to distract herself." Dorothy shook her head. "I think we should go home, see if she's all right." "Look," Melvin turned her face toward his. "I understand your concern, but if we go looking for Iris now, we'll only show that we don't trust her. We'll stop by her house in the morning before we leave. If she's not there, we'll postpone the trip." Dorothy thought for a moment, then nodded. "You're probably right. It's just that I've never been in this situation before. Iris has always been there for me." "Now you have me." Melvin kissed her gently. "And I promise I'll always be there for you, no matter what happens." Dorothy smiled, feeling the anxiety recede a little under the impact of his words. "You always know what to say, because I know you." He stroked her cheek. "Now let's try to enjoy our first night as husband and wife, okay? We'll be sure to find Iris tomorrow, and everything will be fine." Dorothy rested her head on his shoulder, unaware that her daughter would never answer the phone again, and that the man she had just trusted with her life was the reason why.